Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. Notice is hereby given of a regular meeting of the Board of Directors. Notice is given of the regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the district to be held at 105 Fort Road, Port Isabel, Texas, on the 24th day of July 2019 at the hour of 5:30 p.m. for consideration of the business of the agenda below. This notice is posted at the office of the district on July 19th, 2019 at 1 p.m. in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551-041-551-050, not less than 72 hours prior to the time of the said meeting. We do have the presence of a quorum. Notice of the meeting has been duly posted as required by the law. Absent at this time, Mr. Alex Avalos, he called in and said that he would not be attending tonight's meeting. So if I may please go ahead and move on to item number 2, invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and all its blessings. Keep us ever mindful of our responsibility to serve our community. Bless us with wisdom and guide us in our decisions so that we may be better stewards of your gifts. We ask this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, invitation to the audience for public comments. Board, staff, anyone at this time like to discuss, comment, say anything? Okay. I'd like to thank the staff. I know they had a hard day on the island yesterday. A lot of residents and businesses were impacted. It's quite challenging, but it came together and do the best we can and got back up and running 100% as fast as possible. So thank you to the staff for your hard work and effort. Things happen impromptu. That was a major one.
Yes, sir, it was. And, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just kind of brief you a little bit on the event that happened yesterday. We got notice about 3:45 so about water leak at the island. Later on, we found out that the third-party contractor was boring from west to east on Highway 100 and hit our 8-inch water line, which runs parallel with Highway 100 from east to west. It took us several hours, quite honestly, to get it under control. Part of the problem was our water pump. We got it out there, it started, and then just went off. We couldn't get it back on. What helped us, and what we want to do is give a great big thanks to South Padre Island, the city manager, Mr. Smith, Randy Smith, and John and Roland and his crew, Public Works. They were out there with us almost throughout the whole night. And what helped us is they brought their water pump out there. And although it took them a while to get it going, but eventually it did work. We got the water almost down to where we could see the pipe, and the pump shut off. So we had to go back to square one because the water came right back up. And that happened twice. And finally we got it down to where we were able to manage and put a clamp. I did provide a few pictures, kind of so you can see the water line, the breakage on it. And then there was a small clamp that we put on there. We didn't realize how the extent of the damage on the pipe, so we had to get another clamp, and that one we were able to do, and we started putting it on there before the water started rising. And as you can see on that last picture, they were still tightening up the nuts on that clamp. So we eventually did get everything going. We finished up about 8 o'clock as far as the water line was fixing that, but we had the whole crew out here. As a matter of fact, we had the distribution, the manager from the water plant came out here to help out, monitor the water tanks, along with a couple of his crew. We had our standby manager was also out here. In the process of all this, we had a couple other water leaks during that night. One on Garcia, which got fixed this morning, or this afternoon rather. And then we had another one here right behind us on the projects at Bahia, and that one got fixed last night. They finished up about 1:30 this morning. And the crew was back out here about 9 o'clock, 9:30, and got started with the regular duties. But again, if it wasn't for the SPI Public Works crew, we would have been out there a lot longer. Unfortunately, our pump wasn't working. The other pump that we did put out there was a small pump. It was a 3-inch pump, but it wasn't pumping out the water fast enough. So after a while, with the help of SPI, we got all that water out. That's about it, unless anybody has any questions.
I just want to mention one more thing.
Oh,
that,
yes.
You all did get chlorine residuals throughout after the repairs.
That's
And
correct.
flushed out the fire hydrants, the south hydrant. That's why it kind of took longer for the water towers to get filled up, because they were flushing the fire hydrants.
Yeah, we flushed out about 25, 30
Right.
fire hydrants. Got all the air out of the line and cleared it up. The water manager and one of his crew went out there and started testing for chlorine. There was chlorine. We tested the north side and south side of the island and throughout the island, and we did get some chlorine on some parts. Well, all the parts had chlorine. Some were heavier than others, but that's what helped a lot. And the other thing that the Randy Smith, the city manager for South Padre Island, did for us is that he put out a boil water notice for us on the myspi.org. So we got a little bit ahead of the game there. And then we put ours on later on. But he was able to do that around 8 o'clock, right as soon as we finished the job there.
The other thing that y'all did retrieve some more chlorine residuals in the morning.
That's
To
right.
verify that they were higher than last night. And bacteriological samples picked up and sent to the laboratory. We'll have the results by tomorrow, by afternoon, like between 12 and 2 p.m. We'll get some results, and if they are clear, we can mention that the water is clear back and safe to drink. The only thing is that TCQ has a protocol, or one of the rules, that we need to keep that water boil notice for 7 days, even though the water is good to drink, correct?
Yeah, or we can also rescind it when we get the good numbers tomorrow, but the notices will still be posted.
Right. They can still start drinking the water, but that water boil notice has to stay for 7 days. It's protocol.
How many valves, Joe, did y'all have to turn off?
We turned off about 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
About 7. The problem, and even then, we didn't shut off
Wait,
the
wait.
water completely.
Did you know you had to turn off 7, or did you just keep turning them
No,
off?
no, we knew
Some of them.
4. We turned off the 3 that were that medium
Yeah.
in the grassy area. I said, well, you know what, let's see what happens here. We turned those off, and that's when we saw the water just drop. And then it just kept going a little bit, but more under control after that. What allowed it to work.
And you all have 4 pipelines in there, in that area? 4?
There's a spaghetti, if you look at the map, it's a spaghetti of lines in there that
An
honestly,
8-inch, 10-inch, 16-inch.
8, I believe in 16, maybe a 12-inch in it as well.
Yeah, that's where they transition from.
So they're all interconnected in that area, some way, shape, or form. And if you look at the map and see what's out there, there's like 1 or 2 valves that are under concrete or asphalt. So, and then a couple of valves that are broken or not functioning. So that's why we have to expand the area of closure. and it affect the whole island of Portsmouth.
But would that bypass at the causeway have prevented that?
That would have been a big, big plus for
Yeah.
sure. That would have been very helpful.
Any communication made through news circuits, or is it just the two websites?
We made contact with the Valley Morning Star this morning, and they put the notice for us and the information on the water leak. And then we got Channel 5 also in there, and the Portisville Press asked for some information also.
And people can sign up on the website for instant notifications too, and, that's the key deal with getting, everyone wants it right now, but if you're not signed up, they don't get the information, and so they have to do their part too.
And last night too, Channel 5 was announcing it at about 10 o'clock news, that we had a water leak.
So you
I
had
know they
announcement
did it
on
at
it.
6, but I know that 10 o'clock, they may have done that.
Yeah,
One
so,
of the
so
other
we
things
have our
with
own,
the new, Mueller system,
Mhm.
Eddie, you wanna tell us?
yeah, we also have, so besides our email notification list that we have, we also are taking advantage of the WaterSmart software system to send out a notice. So today we used that for the first time. We created an email for all of the addresses that we have on South Padre Island, which is like 683 emails that we have on our billing system that are attached to South Padre Island addresses. So we sent that off just a few minutes ago before the meeting. We were able to get that going. And it just notified people that the boil water notice remains in effect.
Great work, thank you.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, and thank you, Robert, and thank all the staff. Moving along to item, was there any other comments, questions, anyone else want to add before we close that?
Do we do anything with the guys who hit our pipe?
Okay?
No.
Not yet.
No, will we?
That's a hard call, quite honestly. They asked for a line spot, and we gave them the best estimate that we had at that time on that line. And we have a shallow line right there. As a matter of fact, it was like about only 2.5 feet down. So while they did the damage, they weren't entirely at fault.
But I don't think that was your question, was
Yeah, I want to know if they're gonna pay for it. But it seems like you're saying we might have a hard time.
it? It's questionable.
Yes.
It's a very busy area. That's like choke points for everything. It's like the very beginning of all the infrastructure of the island, and it's all, the easements are very narrow, they're not marked accordingly, there's a lot of,
We're
Not
still
just
gonna look
us,
into
but-
it. It's not that we're gonna let it go yet. We're still gonna look into it, see the records of the line spotting, like the photos and everything, and make sure. I guess they do have like a 2 foot distance to hit or not hit,
Yeah.
but it had to be pretty close to that.
Well, the problem is they're boring horizontal.
Yes.
And it's
and
real
we don't
hard
know
for them to control their depth.
Exactly.
And we're not exactly sure how deep our lines are.
Exactly, and unfortunately, the water and sewer lines are about the only ones out there that you can't connect. So you look for a signal line, or Spectrum, or AT&T, or electrical, you pick up a signal with a little wand. Water and sewer lines, they just hopefully, okay, right about in here, buddy.
But the depth is hard to, now you know how deep it is, but before that,
We did.
We even found out, we know a little while ago, that on the map, it's identified a 16-inch line. What we saw was an 8-inch line. Not to say that further east might be a 6-inch line. In the way it's,
Well, the 16 inches under the traffic lane, and the 8 inches the one that
Yes.
serves towards stripes.
yeah, but like on the map, it does show
Yeah.
like a 16-inch in that alignment, so I know there's an 8-inch for sure now. I think there's a 16-inch, maybe. You know, quite honestly.
Thank you. Moving along to item number 4. Consider and discuss for possible approval of the regular meeting minutes for July 1st, 2019.
Move we approve.
Motion made by
Second.
Mr. Houston, seconded by Dr. Lalonde. Are all those in favor? They are. Any opposed?
No, I just wanted to
Motion
hear.
carries.
Yeah.
Okay. For the record, Mr. Starkey abstains. Moving on to item number 5, presentation by Dana King with Liquid Environmental Solutions on recycling of liquid and organic waste.
Yes, Mr. Sherman, this is the request that you all had for Mr. King to do the presentation, so it's ready. Maybe-
Oh,
Is there a
perfect,
clicker?
thank you. Appreciate your time and attention, everybody. A little bit about Liquid Environmental. We have been working in the Valley and in South Padre and Port Isabel for about 18 years. And one of the things I thought would be interesting to give you folks was a presentation about more about what we've done in the Valley, specifically in Westlaco, where they had a unique problem. It's not unlike a lot of for that matter, communities anywhere in the country, but we had some unique circumstances in Westlaco, which are kind of like the Valley, and as a result, we had an interesting way of solving the problem. Let's see if I can make this work. Okay. Just a real quick corporate snapshot, because most people wonder who are we and what are we doing. We started this business, my partners and I, in 2002. We bought a business in Texas and we grew it into a national company. We now have services around the country through 54 branches, one of which is here in the Valley in Westlaco, 23 wastewater treatment plants. They're really pre-treatment plants. They work with communities and water agencies such as Laguna Madre, where we pre-treat material that's high strength for grease or grit, oils, everything non-hazardous, and we then take that water, which meets the wastewater standards for industrial discharge, and send it to the community wastewater treatment, and then it obviously becomes recycled water. We take the oil, the grease, the materials, and we actually recycle that into fuel. So it's about a 98%, almost 99% recycling of the material that comes out of a grease trap or a car wash or an industrial process water, you name it. We do grease traps, number 1. We do cooking oil, where you have used cooking oil that needs to be removed, and that's going to be recycled. Grit traps or car washes typically, also large traps that clean out industrial washes, such as for like, excuse me, FedEx or UPS, the big trucking companies that want to obviously clean up their vehicles, and that creates a lot of mud and dirt, which we end up cleaning out and taking away. And then we treat wastewaters at these plants. Some of them can be through, we can have septic tank waste that comes in. We don't pick it up ourselves. Typically, we just process it. In some cases, we do industrial septic, but that's about the only time where the city of Houston, for all their bus shelters where they have septic systems, will clean those out. But 450 vehicles around the country and nationwide service. And if there's any questions, by the way, anytime, just feel free to jump in. That gives you a sense of where our plants are, where our service centers are. You'll see down here in South Texas, we have that non-CWT, which is centralized waste treatment. That's an industrial plant that would take in industrial wastewaters. If you got like I said, a company that's generating a whole bunch of metal-bearing wastewater or oily wastewater or high organics, those are industrial. We do have about 8 plants for that, but the one in the Valley is specifically a non-CWT, and it really just does grease trap, because there's a lot of grease that comes off of all the food service establishments around the United States. So this is one of those plants, and then there is a transportation unit that goes along with it. So let's just talk about Westlaco, and I think that's the most interesting story for you folks. Looking at trying to identify a solution for grease in the sewers. Everybody has it. In Westlaco's case, up until 2005, they had a lot of challenges with illegal disposal. Specifically, people would pump and dump. That's where they pick up something at a restaurant, drive down the road to the next restaurant. And nobody really knows what they're doing, so they put their hose down into the outgoing grease trap. There's usually 2 pieces of it. And instead of vacuuming up, they push down. And all that material that's been in the truck, along with everything that was in that tank already, now it's flushed down into the public wastewater system. So that's where one of the main reasons why suddenly you get grease hot spots, why you get plugs where you have natural rocks and intrusion of roots, and all of a sudden you add some nice grease, big white chunks of it and that kind of stuff, which I'm sure your operations people are very familiar with. All that stuff, when they pump it down, goes right into the sewer. So now it's no longer the restaurant's problem, it's no longer the pumper's problem. And then they vacuum up everything again, and they drive down the road. To the next one, do the same thing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, somebody might have pumped 5, 6, 7, 8 traps, and they have one load. The reason we learned about this, it's kind of a funny story. When we first bought this business, my partners and I were not really experts in wastewater treatment at that point, but we obviously spent a lot of time learning. And one of the things we found was that some of the haulers, there's a lot of reputable haulers, and I'm not saying that anybody in the valley is not reputable, but like just using as in Houston an example, we had a guy come up with a pump truck and about 8 manifests for about 35,000 gallons of waste. And his normal deal had been for that plant manager just to sign off on it. Like, yeah, we accepted your 35,000 gallons even though it's in a 5,000 gallon tank. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So we started thinking, well, what did we get ourselves into? We learned a lot. That still happens. It doesn't happen as much as it used to. And so I'm going to be giving you some stories that are, especially in Westlaco, I know they don't happen, but I'm also going to tell you that as you and other agencies put pre-treatment ordinances in effect, you remove that behavior, or you take it way down. So there's just by putting an ordinance in, whether you worked with us or not, we're already here as a service provider, and we love working in this part of the world. We'll be there. If you want us to do more, as we'll go into later, we certainly are interested in talking about that. But the point is that just by putting an ordinance together, you're going to get rid of a lot of things, and the pumping and dumping becomes less likely. Although, if you don't have regular manifests that are received by the city or the wastewater treatment agency or whoever manages it, then again, even though you've got an ordinance, if somebody's not managing the store, somebody will come in and help themselves. One of the most fascinating things that happened in Westlaco was, it says less common but significant, illegal dumping on vacant land. Now you folks probably don't have that problem because you don't have a lot of open farmland. But there, the reason really this whole thing got started with us is the city manager was relatively new, and he was very happy to be rejoining the home that he had grown up, or the city he'd grown up with in as a city manager. He gets a call from a place that says, hey, your sewer lines really smell out here, and can you get somebody to fix this? So he asks his water utility, the utility director, to check it out. Guy comes back and says, there's no sewer there. That's a colonia that we've annexed, haven't done anything with it yet. So they drive out there and they find a field near this colonia where somebody in the middle of the night, and they ask people around later just trying to get information. They said, yeah, there was a truck out there, we just figured it was a city truck. They fill up their waste tank, they drive out to the middle of nowhere, they open up the tank at the back, and they drive along and dump 3,000, 4,000, or 5,000 gallons of septic, grease, car wash. The reason they would do this, by the way, is at that point, the only place you could take this legally in the valley was to the, I think it was the Donna landfill at the time. So they were charging, I think it was 26 or 7 cents a gallon. So if you had 5,000 gallons, you were looking at a $1,500, $1,600 bill. Well, if you dump it on the land, you just made $1,600 bucks. So that's kind of one of the classics. And when that happened, that's when the city manager and the whole city council, city commission decided, enough, we're going to figure this out. And that's when the idea that came to them, which is, we're going to talk about in a second, with the franchise. But, so anyway, the issues this causes high concentration of fog, fats, oils, and grease, manpower and chemical treatment costs at the city wastewater plant or the district plant, overflows because fog blockages occur. So that's kind of where Westlaco was in 2005. And I've already kind of gone through this, but the biggest issue was inconsistent receipt of manifests. People didn't know where things were going, so you could do whatever you wanted. You could basically, because there weren't clearly defined plans, like when should you pump out a grease trap, and there weren't any clear ordinances. So you had someone saying, well, I don't think I have to do this any more than like when I think it's full. Well, that's not going to work, because the minute it gets over about 25% of that trap being full of grease and food waste at the top and the bottom, that's when all that grease starts to leak out into the sewers. So basically, and traditionally, a lot of people would also just say, well, why don't I just pump the top part of the trap off, which is oil, and actually use that. I can sell that for something. So then people would leave what was on the bottom, which continues to collect up, and eventually you have the same problem. You put a Band-Aid on a problem, and it actually needed a lot more than that. So people would, in essence, try to avoid doing the mandatory services. And that was really the issues, and it was a lot because of the lack of regulatory oversight. It was just impossible for people to get a handle on things. You'd have to go and look at things so often that you'd have to spend 2, 3, 4 times the expense that you should have to. So the solution that they decided, which is a consideration here, is that they said, well, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to have a mandate of an ordinance. You're kind of talking about, I think you've already done that, or you're in the process of doing that, where you're going to say that there's got to be a mandated service minimum for the grease traps. So you're going to have at least quarterly pumping. That's a typical mandate that most places have. Full evacuation, you have to take it all out. You probably require that, and most haulers should be doing that anyway. Just by mandating it, there's no questions about it. We personally pressure wash all of the interior surfaces of a grease trap as well as the surrounding pavement, because historically, if you just throw a hose into a tank and pump everything out, there's going to be tons of grease caked on the side of that. And that's not really all that, eventually that grease just is going to continue to build up, and it creates the trap failing sooner than it should. So what we do, historically people would maybe, if they did it right, they might scrape all those sides, but what we do is pressure wash. So we have pressure washers in all trucks. So everything's clean, everything's vacuumed up, and then we do an inspection so we can see if there's something broken. Lots of times these are typically concrete vaults. There are hydrogen sulfide gases that can get in there, and they can cause cement to break down. So next thing you know, you have a lot of stuff at the bottom that you're pumping out, and ultimately some of those walls fail, or the T's at the bottom. Everything, the weirs, all those things can kind of fall apart, so you have to be servicing and inspecting them first. So let's see. They also required, and this was part of a thing actually that related to a state regulatory mandate that was established by the legislature, and then TCEQ mandated or created what was called a model ordinance. It said that if you enact this ordinance that says quarterly pumping, or as required, typically more, like for a small restaurant, and you do the proper manifest, and you do all the things you're supposed to do. You don't have to pressure wash. You don't have to. You have to take it to a mandated TCEQ disposal facility. You can't just that way. You've got to manifest that the city or the health department or the water district in town. You've got a hauler that takes one to the disposal facility, and now you can see, oh, well, we know exactly where it went. So there were lots of things that they did in terms of putting a model ordinance in effect. Then they enacted a city franchise for grease trap service, and they invited all haulers to participate by applying for it. Now that was something that the city manager liked in that case for a couple of reasons. One is, while he knew there were other people out there, he said, well, I don't know which ones are being the bad guys and the good guys. So what I'm going to do is, just like I have my trash, my solid waste services, I'm going to pick one person. They're going to handle the whole thing. If they don't do the job, I know who to go to. The other thing is there's coverage if there's something that goes wrong. You know that you've got a franchisee who has insurance that's going to pay for any damages or anything like that. So there were lots of things he liked about doing a franchise. We obviously submitted, we were selected and awarded the That was in September of, no, it was in July of '05, and the services began on September '05. We actually did a comprehensive inspection of all of the traps before we started. We found lots of interesting things. The one I remember the most is there was a trap where out in the back of the restaurant was a grassy field with a trap in the middle of it and no manhole cover. So some little kid or a pet falls in there. Thank God they didn't, but that's the kind of thing that we worry about, obviously from liability as a company, but also as a city or as a district. This is in a report that the city created a year after the first year, when the year was completed, to see what's the results. So they found, in essence, every reason to continue, and they were very happy. Most specifically, for every household, there was a $60 savings per year on terms of things like 50% reduction in grease entering the wastewater treatment plant, 80% reduction in sewer backups and problems, 45% reduction in chemicals. Because we did an in-depth inspection, we identified those malfunctioning traps early, and that created a situation where problems were solved before they became big problems. We actually had a best management practices brochure that we put together that basically put into all the restaurants what you should do with grease. Don't throw it down the sewer. Don't use the floor drains as a trash receptacle when you're mopping up everything. Things like that. There were some food service establishments that didn't have traps. They installed them because they were now being aware that they needed to. They originally were going to have a self-funding program where they took the monies of the franchise fee. That's another bonus. Obviously, like any franchise, we pay the city, in that case, a 10% fee. We proposed it. We did it based on nothing more than what typically solid waste franchises pay. So they had money that was coming together over several years, which they anticipated using as a free loan, if you will, interest-free loan. I'm quite candidly not sure they ever really did that, because I think most people just said we're going to go ahead and pay for it ourselves. It's not like it's $1 million or anything. Food service establishments praised the program because they didn't have to deal with it, as opposed to before, where like somebody from the health department comes out and there's no manifest, they don't know what they're doing, and their hair's on fire. At this point, they basically said, hey, if they didn't have a manifest handy in their paperwork, they know who to call. They call our office, we fax them over one. So you have a lot of, and nowadays, I mean, years later, I mean, it's not even paper. We have microfiche, and we hand people, including the water district or the city, if they have a question, they can get it directly from us. So that's about it. One thing I remember is they didn't have to use their super suckers as often. Those things are expensive. And every time they'd have to go out and deal with a hotspot, they'd be looking at a very expensive piece of equipment that they had to roll. So everybody's happy with the program. Added value, basically there was a pre-treatment partnership, but I think this is the relevant kind of topic regarding you folks thinking about what you're going to do, because if you have a pre-treatment person on staff, that's great. But you ultimately are only as good as your weakest link, right? And that's going to be the hauler. So knowing that you have a relationship with the hauler like we do with the city, if Joe Pedraza, who is in charge of health and code enforcement, if he's got an issue with a restaurant, he typically would call our certain site manager, and they would basically be able to solve the problem. In a lot of cases, it might be, we have to pump that out again. No. They don't. It's actually like a toilet backup or something like that. So rather than creating an expense for a restaurant that's not necessary, they already have somebody that's kind of aware of the whole infrastructure. So you have this partnership, if you will, between a vendor and the public agency, which is, I think, very helpful. We inspect every trap, every service, like I said. So it's not like 10 years from now we're going to go, oh, I wonder when that happened. It's like if it breaks, we're going to know within 90 days. We're going to suggest that it get fixed. If they don't fix it, the city knows, because we're providing them with that information. So, and it's just like anything. You might say your car needs new tires. But you might wait 30 days or 60 days, and that might be fine. But eventually, you're gonna have to pay, and if in essence, the person watching to make sure that those tires are safe knows that they are gonna be repaired eventually, that's a bonus. So those are a couple of added benefits. One interesting side to this is franchises are typically exclusive. Once Public Waste or Waste Management, they win the franchise and they run the whole system for the city. That was the original plan because the city didn't want people driving around picking up stuff and didn't know where it was going. But a lot of people that were upset that they didn't suddenly have those customers that they had in Weslaco, they got upset. And a bunch of them said, well, that's not fair. So they filed suit. And their suit was thrown out because the city has every right to create a franchise like that. The next thing they did is they, very creative actually, they went to the Texas legislature and they said, this is terrible because this is, this is free enterprise. We should be able to do whatever we want. That's a fair point, although that free enterprise had been costing the city an awful lot in terms of wastewater expenses, which suddenly disappeared. But it's hard to get around those kinds of little guy, I should be able to do my work and have my business. It's hard to get around that. So the legislature said, okay, you can't do exclusive franchises anymore. You can only do a non-exclusive franchise. Well, that sounds like it's going to end the franchise. No. What was really great is that the city and LAS, we got together and we said, look, as long as we can do this and we can let everybody do it and the city will benefit as long as everybody follows the rules. So make it a non-exclusive franchise, but you still have to pump every quarter, you have to put all your manifests in, you have to pressure wash, you have to have insurance, you have to have all the things that a franchisee has. And as a result, the funniest thing I've ever seen is that for 14 years now, almost 15, there's not one competitor that's ever signed up. We still have effectively an exclusive franchise because the rules require that you do things right. Now, I'm not saying that everybody that didn't sign up is a bad guy. They might just have said, oh, I just don't want to bother with it. It's not that big. Weslaco's only a city of 35,000 people with 100, and I think now they have about 180 restaurants. Back then they had 120. So anyway, I'm a big fan of non-exclusive. I don't have any problem with it as long as everybody does it legally and fairly. Follow in this case, the water district's guidelines. So that's my story in terms of non-exclusive. And it's a good thing to remember because I'm not asking you to put anyone out of business. All I'm asking is everybody treats everybody fairly and does the job they're supposed to. And when we got into this business, like I said years ago, one of the reasons we did, I have a former partner who was a city manager in St. Louis and Oregon. Another partner was a mayor of a city in California. The reason we got into this is we said, boy, the city manager partner said, this is just going to get more and more complicated because sewer lines are clogging up and there's no way that cities can handle this. So there has to be a public-private partnership, and that's how we got involved. And this was the essence of that, I think, argument effectively met, saying that, we're going to work with the city. We're not your enemy. We're not telling you that we are going to do what we want because we have a right to pump a trap. This is really something that's mandated by community needs and government compliance.
So the first time you all did the contract with Weslaco was through an RFP?
Yeah.
And you got hired, and then after that, the franchise just kept going?
There was a 7-year contract.
7-year contract.
And at the end of basically, I think it was about 2 years in, is when the legislature said you can't do exclusive franchises. So we got together and we said, make it non-exclusive,
So was that another RFP that y'all went for, or
No,
they just
because
kept?
it was just them opening, it was us agreeing to novate, to moderate, to change the contract so that it was not exclusive. And as long as the city attorney basically said, we're willing to let other people in, but they still have to follow the same franchise.
Can you back that slide up once, please? I'm a slow reader.
Back it up.
Thank you. Unpack that, how you're paying 3% of the invoice billing fee, so whenever you're billing said restaurant.
Thank you for, I should have told you that. Yeah, the way we do it is that it's a benefit to both sides. We basically put our bill on we send the bills, in essence, the services to the city, and they put it on the water bill. The city gets a 3% fee for doing that. So they effectively are getting 13% of the total that the restaurant is charged for service. They get 10% franchise fee, 3% billing fee.
Okay. Okay, thanks, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, we like that a lot. I mean, in all candor, not having to bill directly. I mean, if the city or the water district sends out a water bill, you can be pretty darn sure it's gonna get paid. If the cable bill or something else goes out, that might be the second thing they pay, but it's not the first. So it's a benefit to everybody.
Now, let me ask you this. Is there other cities that you all send the bill to the customers?
There are not.
Like right now, you do have some of our restaurants here. You send them a bill directly, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it works fine. I mean, I'll tell you when we first were very excited about this franchise and we thought there would be more, we actually had several cities in the valley that were interested in proceeding with it. But when the court case got won, that's when they were starting. But then the legislature, when they changed everything, everybody said, okay. And we, in all honesty, at that point said, we're in uncharted waters here. We don't know whether this is going to be cost effective because it might be we took the price down because it was a franchise. And you're doing everything very efficiently. You have every restaurant in the city, you can charge less because it's obviously a truck just literally drives down and does things super efficient. So we ended up giving people, I think at that point it was typical rates were about 35 cents a gallon for service, and we brought it down to I think it was 32. So not a bad 10% discount, and then we give 10% to the city, so you can see the efficiencies. But when all these things change, and we go, well, we might not have all those efficiencies, but now we're charging less. We kind of we took our foot off the gas. And in all honesty, in the interim, we were growing as a national business. Back when we did this, we were in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma. That's it. And then very quickly, we started to see large corporate requirements for these kinds of services. What happened is that a Walmart, for example, we do all the Walmarts in the United States. Now we do them for grease trap, cooking oil, car wash. When we first started working with them, we said, oh, this is great. And they had about 12 vendors around the country. Suddenly we had their Texas business. And then they wanted us to do more. And the next thing you know, we were growing and adding organic growth, building plants, but also making acquisitions. So we kind of took our eye off the franchise ball. It's not that we don't like the idea, but it's the same old thing. When you have opportunities that are stronger, you just have to dive into those first. But when there was conversation about an ordinance and a pre-treatment program for the Luna Madre, I kind of had a soft spot for this part of the world because this was the first plant that we built with my partners and I. We had bought a group of plants that were already there, but the first one we built was here. And so I got to know the valley reasonably well. A personal crazy joke, but I didn't know of too many people here, so what I would do is I would take a whole bunch of my laundry that needed to be ironed because my wife is not a big fan of ironing. So I would take it with me in my suitcase and I would watch Sports Center, ESPN, and I'd just do my ironing. And my partners, one time at a dinner we were having, was teasing me saying, what, do you have a second family in Westaco, and what your second wife does your ironing? And my wife goes, well, if she'll do my ironing, that's fine. We'll go ahead and we'll give you mine too. So anyway, I have a soft spot for the valley, and I love the idea of doing more work there.
Does ironing come with this arrangement?
I wish it would, but that second family doesn't really exist. So, we're the leading service provider to customers in South Padre already. It's not like a big jump to say we'd love to service the whole area. Again, it'd be non-exclusive, so everybody kind of has to follow the rules, and if they really like their hauler, I'm sure is gonna stand up and do the work. That's fine. We have a lot of experience in providing pre-treatment inspection, reporting, and recommendations. That's across the valley, but it's also really across the whole country. A lot of that comes from our large corporate accounts, because as we've worked more with the Walmarts of the world, what they say is, we used to say, we don't do the service. We'll tell you that it needs to be serviced, but we don't do it, and good for you to have an arm's length. But increasingly, they're saying, you know, it's broken, we want you guys to manage it. So increasingly, we're looking at doing more and more of the full service type of work. In pre-treatment inspection, you guys know what a sludge judge is. That's where you're putting basically a tube in to determine the content of fats, oils, and greases in our case. Well, we do that with all the traps to start. So once again, we have the data that the city or the district can say, oh, so it's 21% fats, oils, and grease. Next month it's 30. Oh, well, we've got to do more frequent service. Or next month it's 21 or 10. Well, we don't need to do it as often. The school district in Westaco started off with quarterly. That's what the mandate was. But they very quickly said, you know, guys, we don't need to do this because we really only are there for parts of the year, and we should just do it at Christmas time and at the end of the school year. And then everything's all teed up for next year. Why do it again in the summer when it's all sitting there vacant? So those are the kind of things that a pre-treatment coordination between a vendor and a city, I think is, it works both ways. There's going to be times when we're not going to be doing work that we might have done under a very rigid guideline because we can be flexible. And just like a pre-treatment inspector would say, well, I just want the results. I don't need to follow something rote just because it says if it's not working, if I can do it less or do it more. If it's a small, there's a grease trap in Westaco that's 5 gallons. It's the Elks Club. If they do a restaurant, I mean, if they do a fish fry, they're going to have to clean that thing out practically while it's operating. But in their case, they don't do that often. So when they have a big fish fry or something, clean out the trap. But that might be once a year. So lots of flexibility.
Any other questions?
I got a bunch.
Go for it.
All right, here we go. If I understand, I'll preface with this, and I'm sure they're going to understand, because I'm the one that gets it last. So what we're talking about here is considering potentially making an ordinance where these entities in our community would have to receive this service. Is that pretty much correct? You started out talking about an ordinance, and the service would be potentially quarterly. You recommended would be a basic.
That's typical for national.
And so I would assume they get the bill after they get the service. So our customers would get a quarterly bill when this service is rendered. Is that correct?
Right.
And you mentioned that we as a district would get a 10% franchise
Well, that
and
was
a
our
3%.
That was our proposal.
But it could be
And
more?
It was accepted, and I guess I would say that if it was a competitive procurement,
Okay.
everybody has to come up with their proposal.
Of course.
Ours would certainly, we don't have a problem with that one.
Okay.
You know,
This is just from my understanding, but potentially it could look like that. 10% franchise fee, 3% invoice fee was referenced in this presentation. Now, you talked about car washes, restaurants. You know, so if we were to consider something like this, we can include all of it. I mean, car washes, restaurants, fast food chains.
fast
You
food
mentioned
is a huge
Walmart.
part, So, yeah. We already do the Walmart. There isn't one in,
PI there.
yeah. You know, is there one? I don't
Yeah.
think there is, really. Okay.
Wally World, right up the street. Very
Yeah.
popular spot in
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
community. No, I'm just kidding. And then like school district, I mean, would that be applicable as well?
Yeah, in fact, now those are typically done by a bid on a regular, like maybe
Okay.
2 or 3 years. In this case, that would supersede it. It would basically say you're going to work with one of our haulers, our approved haulers. If there's only one, just like Westaco ISD, they no longer go out for bid for that service because it just comes as part of the city.
Okay. And then, generally speaking, you were talking about services with, you know, roughly back in the day, it was like 32 cents a gallon, and then it was a 10% savings of roughly 22, cents a gallon. Is that still kind of the ballpark that you're in?
Not 22, I think it's,
25, 22?
no, it's actually still in that range of around, I mean, it depends on the conditions and what you're doing. But I think fair to say that service prices can be anywhere in probably the low 30s to could be in the mid-40s if
Okay.
someone's asking for a lot of additional work.
So this would be a case by case then, if
Yeah.
we're to decide to move
Well,
forward
you
with
can-
this?
You can establish a per gallon fee in the franchise.
Okay.
That's certainly possible.
Okay.
The thing about what you can do here, as I should say, is you actually have a lot of flexibility to
Mhm.
decide. You could decide that you want to pick, like in Jacksonville, Florida, they have a preferred hauler program. They don't go quite as far as a franchise. They just say, you got to use one of these 5, 6, 8, 1, whatever it is. I think now it's about 7 or 8
Mhm.
companies. They're approved, they're going to do the work the way that the Jacksonville electric utility, they run the utility. You've in essence set up some guidelines. At that point, the restaurant is still contracting directly with the city, with the vendor.
Okay.
In their case, there's no franchise fee. It's a service, like a competitive price, you just have to use that particular hauler. And by doing that, you get a lot of the benefits because you know that to get approved, you have to be following the rules. So there's a whole series of ways to do that. If you do that, you probably end up with maybe you're paying somebody in the district to manage that pre-treatment program with more than one hauler and more than 2 or 3. Or you can go the whole enchilada and say, we're gonna have, approved people that are gonna do everything, including our billing, we're gonna do it through the water district, they're gonna price to a standard that's X, you can do
Okay.
it any way you want, really.
There's some flexibility there. I'm seeing
Yeah.
that too. Lastly, this isn't really going to cost the district anything. If anything, it's going to save the district money,
Right.
potentially save our customers some money down the road as we get this really under wraps, and maybe even generate a little revenue,
Yeah.
potentially, if I'm reading this correct.
Yeah.
That's all I
And
got.
they, yeah. and
Maybe
they-
our odor places don't stink as bad either if we get this under wraps too, right? I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
positives to doing something like this.
Yeah, we obviously are very supportive of it. We like the communication that goes with having a preferred relationship, whether it's us and somebody else. Like I said, it's a little weird because we've had people that should have been able to do it, but they haven't.
Uh-huh.
So it makes it kind of easy right now because we still have a very close relationship. In this case, I'm assuming that there'd be more than one person that would approve that would participate. But it's kind of an open discussion as to what will happen with that. But, I think having a way that the district, and the cities, by the way, because when Victor Baldovinos in the health department in South Padre, he's on these restaurants looking to make sure that everything is
Mhm.
safe. So he's already kind of mandating things. It's not like you're going from complete Wild West with no services or anything. Everybody's doing it. The only question is
How consistent?
yeah, he's in a little bit of a difficult bind because he almost has to work in lockstep with you folks in order to be able to manage the water district's infrastructure. So,
All right, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
You only service the island right now? Or anything in Port Isabel?
I think we service in Port Isabel. I think I looked at the list when we sent it, and it was something like, 6, 7, 8?
Yeah, about 5, 6.
What do you project is the revenue for something like this? Like the total revenue for all the island in Port Isabel? Get a guess.
Well, just to give you a ballpark, you figure quarterly services, the trap with 1,000 gallons. That's a typical trap. Some of them are going to be very small, but there's going to be some like the Walmarts that might be 5,000 gallons. But you just figure 1,000 gallons. You figure quarterly. Let's just say it's let's go a little high, just so I'm being conservative. But call it like a 35 cents a gallon all in. By the way, with small traps, if you have like a 50-gallon grease trap, you can't do it for 20, 30, 40 cents. You're doing it for $1 or more because it's the same expenses and you have very little water, so you have a lot of time and you just have to spread that over fewer gallons. But let's just say that, you're looking at probably like $300 a service, $350. So you got $1,200 to $1,400 a year times the food service establishments in the Port Isabel, and I don't know, I apologize for how many you have, but I'm just gonna guess that you probably have 100 collectively, does that sound right? 150?
Island, the island too?
Altogether with the island.
I'd say 150 would be
Maybe it's more. So, you know, there's.
210 per quarter.
And that's just, you know, I'm giving you a real ballpark there, I don't know. what the number is.
840 annually.
No,
Under those numbers.
350 quarter times.
So,
100.
and in some cases,
35,000.
like in some cases, like if there was a large national account, the pricing that we have for that national account is typically gonna be the
180
overriding
per establishment.
account leadership. So if we're doing something for Walmart
210.
across the whole country, we're probably gonna end up, that's gonna be a price that stands for that company, whereas, you know, for the smaller place or the franchise for the fast food, then if there was a pricing structure in that agreement, it would probably reflect the city or the districts.
And we'd only get
I think,
It's
we
not
need
really
to
a
move
revenue
forward
stream
with
as
the
much
meeting,
as it
so
is like prevention.
I guess we can come back and
compliance,
bring some more information at the next
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Cutting down on a lot of expenses that we're treating currently to, get that stuff benefit. So it's really preventive with a little revenue stream. That's how I'm looking at it. Thank you very much for your presentation. I learned a lot.
We'll bring some more information at the next meeting. so
Okay,
have
thanks.
more accurate
We're happy to help, any way we can.
So we can close now, we're done?
We always like to.
I'm not that item. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate. Excuse me, moving on to item number 6. Excuse me, a virtual demonstration by Jim Turner with WaterSmart software on the new computer, on the new customer portal.
Okay,
WaterSmart, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for giving me just a few minutes today to introduce and do a quick overview of the WaterSmart platform. I'm going to primarily talk about the user experience today, and then I'll talk a little bit about how you all can use it to support your efforts in your utility. Just as a quick overview, we are a platform that provides your customers a customer portal so that they can log online and see their water use. They can also get tips for recommendations to save water, as well as resolve their own leaks and high bill questions. I can go through a little bit of that with you. I know my time is limited, so I'm going to go pretty fast, and I'll definitely leave time available to ask any questions about that. We also have the back-end data analytics dashboard for your customer service reps and for your administrative teams there. And you'll see that it provides you with really in-depth information about each customer's water use as well as your aggregate water use. What I'm going to start with today is just how customers will log on and well, I know that there was a question about how customers can put the WaterSmart web app onto their mobile devices, so I'll cover that a little bit today too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift over to our WaterSmart dashboard so that we can begin looking at that. The customer portal, so we can begin looking at that. You all see the sign-up screen for WaterSmart on your shared screen?
Yes.
Great. So customers can get into WaterSmart simply by typing in LMWD.watersmart.com, and they'll be brought to this screen. Customers, when they get to this screen, will find their account by typing in their account number. And we've got a guinea pig that has agreed to give us, let us use their account. So we're going to go ahead and type in her account number. And then we're going to type in her zip code. And by doing that, she then finds the account. And so we found the account. At this point, the customer would enter their email address. Oops. And then we would make a password for her to get to remember. So I'm just gonna make up a password.
I think that email is misspelled.
Oh, I'll fix it in just a second. Oh, yep, right it is. Thank you. So with this email address and password that she will remember as her login, the email with the username, and she then registered for WaterSmart. And you'll see in just a moment everything that's available on the WaterSmart customer portal for the customer. Basically, we allow customers to see their billing and track their use, and then we'll provide them with recommendations so that they can set water, and then of course they can set recommendations and settings for their own account. So just a couple of quick things about what the customers can see. When the customers view their use, they'll be brought to a track tab, which allows them to view both their hourly use as well as their billed consumption or their billed use. You'll see that here we have the AMI data from Advanced Metering Infrastructure inside WaterSmart, and we provide customers initially their daily consumption, and if customers want more information, they can click into their hourly consumption and see their hour-by-hour use. They can move around to different times and days, or they can even expand the window so that they can see their hourly use over time. If customers ever want to get back to their daily use, they just look at the 2-week view and it'll bring them back to their daily use. In addition, we have some nifty graphs and charts that the customers can use to manage their own water use. This chart is our average temperature and precipitation versus the customer's water use. So you can see in times when the temperature is particularly high and the precipitation is particularly low, we expect to see a little bit more water use, and when the precipitation is we expect to see a little less water use. So that's some of the tracking information that customers can see about their AMI use, and they can also see their billed use, so that they can go back and see how their billed use compares against other customers that are like them, as well as get a historical view of how much water they have billed. Something else that's always important to customers, of course, is their billing. So if customers wish to view their bill or make a payment, we have the information about the customer's bills inside WaterSmart. We mock up a little summary bill so that the customers can see the due date and total amount due very clearly. And they can also see their history right now back to April of this year. As we get more and more information, we'll keep all this history, it will never go away, and we'll just add on to it every month that we get a billing record for that customer. When customers want to pay bills, you just simply click on that button, and we'll be redirecting customers to your electronic payment site to make their payments very easy. So you'll see in just a moment, your EasyNet Pay will come up, and that's where customers will pay their bills. One of the things that customers often will ask is they'll ask, well, why is my bill so high? So they can go to Evaluate Bill, and it will bring them to our area where they can compare their own use over time, and they can also set notifications for high bills, as well as use our bill resolution system that helps them to understand all the reasons why they might have high bills. For this customer, some of the reasons that we picked out is that we think that they are irrigators. They might have a leak. Something about the property has changed, or something about the household has changed. One reason why customers' bills are sometimes high is because the billing period length has changed or has increased by a couple of days. If that were the case here, that could also be reflected. One last thing I want to show you is what customers look like can do if they have leaks. Again, I'm going to go back to the customer's homepage. Now, this customer does not have a leak, but you notice that in our I want tos, which are quick links, where customers can go and get further information about some of the most commonly asked questions, they can go to check by the leak, and there they'll be introduced to our leak resolution system that takes customers step by step through all the areas where leaks are common. We tell them how to find the leak. We tell them how to fix the leak, etc. There's videos for every module or every screen, and customers can tell us all along the way whether they found a leak or not. At the very end, they can tell us that they didn't find a leak, and then they can ask for further assistance. So these are just some of the features that customers have access to. Currently, the customer portal is turned on and available for all your customers. The last thing I just want to point out is that customers can set their own notifications where they can ask to get a bill forecast notification. If their bill is expected to go a certain amount over their average bill, they can get a notification and say, hey, we think you're going to get a high bill, or they can set a daily use notification anywhere from 2 to 5 times their average use. So if they go over that average use by that set threshold, they will get a notification by email or voice or text, depending on what they choose, to let them know that, hey, your usage is a little high today. You might want to check in on that and see what's going on. And of course, if customers have leaks, we'll send them leak alerts by email. And if customers request it, we can also send those by voice or text. So those are just some of the features of WaterSmart on the customer portal. I do just want to take a quick moment and shift gears and look at how customers would set up the web app on their phone. So I mentioned, so getting the WaterSmart app is really, really easy. On any mobile device, customers simply go through the steps that I described before. They go to lmwd.watersmart.com, they find their account, they register, and then if they have an Apple or iPhone, there's this little button at the very bottom of the frame that is the share button. And this, by clicking on this button, it will then bring up this screen, and customers simply click on add to home screen. Then they'll be given the opportunity to edit the app's name as they would like, and they simply click add on the upper right-hand corner, and the app will be added to home screen or whatever device they choose to use. It's really simple, and we can make instructions available for your customer service reps. In fact, these instructions, if customers ever have questions. For an Android user, it's even simpler. For any Android browser, whether it's Chrome or the new Microsoft browser or even Firefox, they simply go to the menu button in the browser, click add to home screen, and it will appear on their phone. Then they can move that app to whatever screen they like it, and they are done. So I wanted to make sure that I covered that for you, because I know that there were some questions about how to do that and how to easily get the app on the customer's phone or mobile device. I can take a quick second and take a pause. I do want to cover a couple of points about the utility dashboard, but I do want to stop for a moment because I've sort of covered a lot of material, and I want to make sure that you don't have any questions.
I've got a question, please. I had an issue trying to sign up, and I had to come in the office because I was trying to go through Google to find with that address, and it doesn't work through Google.
You were trying to look up the address?
Yes, I was using my Google search engine to go to the water, to that water.
So we recently optimized so that Google should recognize it now. I'm not sure how long ago that was that you tried, but I believe that we've fixed that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, you can proceed.
Great, perfect. So the next thing I want to cover is just the analytics dashboard. There are a few things that you can do with the analytics dashboard. Now, anybody in the utility can sign up to be either an administrator or an editor or a viewer of the WaterSmart utility dashboard. Here we give you aggregated information about your entire system's water use. That is, how many gallons are being used, how that compares to previous periods and previous years, etc. You can also track how customers are engaging with your portal, with their customer portal. You'll see that we've been up for about a couple of weeks, and we've already got 189 registrations, which is about 3% of your customer base. For 1 or 2 weeks in, and without any WaterSmart welcome letters or other engagement going out, this is actually a really great registration rate. And then another thing that you can do here is we have a number of analytics reports that you can use that are already in the box. So for instance, if you wanted to pull up the customers who are the top changers, that is those people who either use more or less water than anybody else, you can see that you can pull up a report that has people who have either increased their usage or decreased their usage the most. This is just one example of a report in WaterSmart. We have information about irrigators. We have leak reports that you can use to track customers' leaks. We have conversation reports that you use to track the comments and the questions that customers have that they send through WaterSmart. And there's also really deep analytics in regards to consumption and other things that you can suspect meters and other things that you might need to use to report to an agency or to manage your own water system and water infrastructure. So you can spend a great deal of time just going through every report, and I imagine that you would find that it's going to save you a lot of time and effort when you're trying to do analytics. Something else that we do is we help you to communicate with your customers, either by creating lists of customers. We did this just today to help you communicate to customers about the South Padre boiled water notice. You'll see that we created this list simply by drawing a circle around South Padre Island and pulling in all 2,000 accounts that were in that area. And then we were able to send an email, and Roxanne was able to send an email out to all of those customers that we had email addresses for to let them know that they should boil water. We can also deliver group messages by voice or text. As long as you deem it to be an emergency communication, you can go ahead and do that through those two channels. For the group message, it's simply, you can open this up real quick, simply to send a message. All you have to do is press that message button, and it brings all of those accounts directly into a group message that then you can set up. And in this case, we send out an emergency alert for your customers. And we just use that template, and then you'll see that all 2,000 customers are brought in, and 647 are eligible for that email list. So that was done today, and I'm very pleased that we were able to help with that. One other thing I want to show you about the customer about the analytics dashboard is that you can actually look up customers, and this is great for your customer service reps, and see each customer's water use account by account. So the things that your customer service reps can see on WaterSmart is how many gallons the customer was most recently billed for, how that compares against other households like her, and also they can see her bill history just like Rebecca can see hers on the customer portal. Well, one other thing that I think is really nifty about WaterSmart is that we allow your customer service reps to see what your customers see, because your customer service reps can open up a mirror of the customer portal. So you don't go through those conversations trying to explain to the customer what you're seeing, or trying to understand what they're seeing. You're both looking at the same thing, and you can easily help customers as they call in. So that's a little bit about the utility dashboard. And there's certainly much more I could show you, but I know my time is limited, so I'll just stop here, and I'll see if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you would like to see that I haven't shown you.
I think we're good. I
We're
think
good.
this is just a learning curve for everyone to catch up and get used to it and get it out to the, get the customers aware that it's available.
Our learning curve is not really steep, because we do try and keep everything as user-friendly as possible. But indeed, one of the things that is most difficult in changing systems, of course, is just using it. And so we are, we did a little training, and I'm going to continue to do check-ins with the team over time to make sure that you all are using the product to the best of its ability.
Minnie, what, have you had comments, questions, problems, or customers, or what's the reaction?
When I got my bills this month, I got the letter from Hetty, but we need to do that again and
Yeah.
again, and in your next insert, you need to put in there how to set it up on your phone like an app, because it's not in the letter you sent out.
Okay.
We're
All right.
also gonna post it up in the front.
So Eddie, you let me know if you need any, we have some graphics in our marketing kit that might be of help.
Okay.
Or if there's something I can provide to you to help you with that, we'll certainly talk about that.
Yes, we'll do.
But it's important to get to the people that live out of town, or, in Mexico or wherever they live. Those are the key users.
Yes. So one of the methods that we use to communicate with people is the bill inserts, but a lot of the people that live
Don't
out of
receive those
town,
bills.
they don't see those bill inserts. So somebody that, for example, lives in Houston and has a vacation condo here, they get their bill electronically. Those bill inserts are not part of that email bill. So that's
We just need to try to
challenge
hit
them.
probably like a certain success percentage of how many of our customers have we, got signed up. What's our goal?
So the-
90%
the-
of our customers should be on this
The
and have that.
the plan for those customers is to
100%,
use
but-
is to use the ability that WaterSmart has to email everyone that we have an email on file, and invite them electronically to sign up for the app.
Is there any way to, besides using email as notifications, is there a way to use text? Because I check my text a whole lot more often than I check my email.
Yes, for the emergency templates, Jim, is text an option?
Yes, so when you're creating a group message, you can choose text or voice. When you do that, you need to check off that this is a service-related issue, and that you are giving us authority to send out text on your behalf in that case.
And I like that idea for board members to get messages like those alerts, even if it's a water leak here in Port Isabel or Buena Vista or South Padre Island. And I would like to receive it together with you guys at the same time, so we can do that.
So Jim, I'd like to work with you. Maybe tomorrow morning we can send out a text advising people that the boil water notice is still in effect.
That would be fine. Yeah, I spent some time with Roxanne going through that, reviewing that with her. I was very happy that she sent out the email today, and I'm available tomorrow to work with you and Roxanne to create the text and voice.
Thank you.
Quick question. Is there a name of the app that you can search for it in the App Store?
No, we are not in the App Store.
Okay.
This is a web app that is a shortcut to our internet access. There's a lot of reasons for that, and that I can go through with you really quick. But the first
No,
thing is
you don't have to. It's fine. Do you plan on ever being in the App Store?
we do not.
Okay, no problem. That's great. Appreciate it. You're good. Don't explain it. I'll just get it from the web. Thanks, man.
Jim, we do have another question from someone in the audience. Do you have any options for Spanish speakers?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry that I did not highlight that. So you see the customer portal here. Actually, I'll go to the actual customer portal. And you'll see up at the upper right-hand corner, there is an English Espanol option. And so all the regular WaterSmart content is translated into Spanish. And if we create any custom information, we can work to create both an English and Spanish translation.
Wonderful.
That's a big deal.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You know, Eddie, and this is just a suggestion, but before, you know, we have a lot of nationals here right now. It might behoove us to put together a lot of circulars or whatnot and take them to the front desk of all these high-rise condos where all these nationals like to stay. And it might be a way to get that information directly to them while they're here before they go back to Monterey.
Okay.
You know basically where they live. Most of those places have front desk and lobbies and a manager, and you can explain to them what this information is and why we want to get it out to their the people that live there.
Yeah. A lot of those high-rise condos, though, they're not individually.
Yeah, 1 meter.
Yeah, they're not individually metered. So.
But they might know someone else.
Mhm.
Just,
Residences.
just trying to get that information out to that Monterey crowd as much as possible.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we'll
If
brainstorm.
you just get
on
it to
that.
one of them, the whole city will know.
Let all their cousins know. But I've been impressed so far. I've got an alert on the water usage, so.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Great. Perfect.
Okay, Jim.
Okay. Any other questions I can help you with, or anything else I can show you for my time is up?
I think that's it. We
No, I
appreciate
think
your
that's
time
it.
and patience in working with us. Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Jim.
right. Well, thank you. We're looking forward to working with you and working with your customers to help them manage their water use and help your customer service reps to help your customers better. Have a great day, everybody.
Same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jim.
Bye.
Moving along to item number 7, General Manager's Report, Carlos.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I plan to meet with the bond committee on this coming Saturday, starting at 8 o'clock. We'd like to have a meet and greet with them, and I don't know how many have called in, maybe a couple that can't make it, but we're hoping to see quite a few of them here Saturday morning. Mr. Houston wanted to be invited to that one too, for board members. We can talk about anything and let them know anything that we need now. We can even express ourselves to vote for this, and as long as we're not on the ballot yet for election, we can talk about all this. And I believe that our bond counsel will be here also Saturday. Did he say he was going to make it, or?
He said he would probably be here.
As you see the agenda here, we plan to take them about 9 o'clock to the water treatment plant, show them what we have at the microfiltration, and show them around what the good quality water that we have, and that then bring them to water plant number 1, show them there what we don't have and what we need, and hopefully that they can be in the planning with us and bring something back to the board where we recommend all together all the needs as for that new rehabilitation at the water plant number 1. So we're hoping that we have a good crowd, and you all are welcome. I'm gonna have breakfast for them, water, and just give a presentation of how the resolution was brought up.
Starting
for
at
them.
what time?
Right, so it'll be hopefully they'll enjoy the
What time
tour.
does all this begin?
Brian,
What was that?
post an open meeting.
It's in, do you have a copy in there?
Possible
Number
open
7,
meeting.
look at number 7, item number 7. And it's,
If
it
we
just
have
gives
a
you the
quorum
agenda
of
on it.
Okay.
board members.
We did send them, that letter directly to get the invite. And,
It's
on
a
that
good-looking
one.
group, I might add, that we've accumulated. If we can inform them and educate them, and God willing, they get on board, I think that's a big plus.
Yep, it sure is.
Yeah,
And then,
if you all could let us know if you plan on attending, just in case we to know if we need to post a possible open meetings notice if there's a potential quorum of board members, then there'll be a notice that we'll have to post 72 hours in advance. So,
Will not be there,
okay.
but I'll be there in spirit.
You'd like, yeah, at least 1 or 2. But then again, on the follow-up meetings, as I scheduled there, I did get a call from a couple of committee members that they were not able to be attending, like between the 8 and 5 sessions during the week, because they do work. But I plan to do after 5 o'clock hour a meeting with them. So we'll bring it up at that Saturday morning. I'll let them know that Wednesday will be at 10, Wednesday the 31st at 10 a.m. But then the following Thursday, possibly at 5:30 maybe, because they get out of work at 5 and then they can make it. Those that can't make it.
By having multiple different times is the best,
Exactly.
because
Right.
not everyone can make, everyone has different schedules.
Correct. So that's what this is all about.
Yes,
So
that's a great
hopefully
job.
we'll have
Great
a
concept.
good tour and show up of committee members. And the second one that I have here is, again, I mentioned that gathering, summer gathering for district employees. We have an RSVP sheet in there. Y'all are welcome to go and be with us at the one of the beach access number 5. And
Is that in the city or the county?
oh, it's a county, way back. So we checked it out, and it looks like a pretty good area where we can have luncheon there and have some good time together with the kids, family, and at least they have a good luncheon. We're gonna have some brisket and the whole works, and hot dogs for the kids. So y'all are welcome to take your kids and family and be there at least for the luncheon, good brisket. I think Joel is one of his friends is cooking, so we know that he does cook brisket pretty neat, pretty good. So
Terrible.
anyhow, we'll be there from what's the time? 10 to 2, 9 to 2, 9 a.m. Saturday to 2 p.m. and it's August the 17th. So and that's all I have for right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to item number 8, Director of Operations report. Robert?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I have the June report, pretty much with, compared to last year's report. The big difference deals again with the meters, where we have the work on the meter boxes, that reported back in June of this year, and the pool meters that we had. Again, these pool meters deal with the meters that have a low and a high reading, and exchanging them with the Mueller meters, it reads just once, so we have to pull off the system, one of the meters. And that's in the distribution. On the collection side, again, the difference is your preventive maintenance. which we had at the 26th back in June. Any questions?
No, sir.
The next report I had, I left a copy there on top of your table there. Deals with the meters that, as before, we've pretty much finished with the Laguna Vista, Laguna Heights installation. Portisbel, we have over 56% completion. We have 731 left. And at South Padre, we have about 237 meters that we need to complete. We are running into a little bit of problem. I brought these meters to kind of show you the problems that we're having in installing. This is a Badger meter. And the grooves on here, they're all part of the meter itself. They're cut into the brass. The Mueller meter has the threads that are pressed in there. They're stainless steel. The inside is like a hard plastic, I guess. I'm sorry?
It's a composite meter.
Okay, thank you. And so the problem that we're running into this is you really can't tell that much, but the Mueller meter is just slightly bigger or in length than the Badger meter. And here in Port Isabel, we have a lot of what they call straight line installation. And so what they're running into is that in taking these off, they're having to dig around the line so they can bend it a little bit to be able to put the coupling into the threads. And so it's taking a little bit more time. Where it normally takes 20 minutes or so to do a meter, 20 to 30 minutes, it's now taking them approximately 40 minutes, almost twice as much. And then once they do that, the other problem is that the normal washers that they put on the meter prevents the coupling from tightening up as it should. So we're having to go to the other thinner, yeah, much thinner, so that we can get
What's
those
it gonna do in
couplings
the
tighter.
long run? I mean, the thinner washer is gonna have an impact, you think, or no?
We're hoping not, but only time is gonna tell. So we're still hoping that we can get most of the meters done by the end of August. We're looking at if we can do 30 a day, 150 a week, that'll get us to the end of August, but it may be towards the middle of September, maybe the latter part. It depends how much problems we run into these installations that we're having. So, and the problem again is here in Port Isabel being having the oldest lines and meters and so forth, it's just making it a little bit more difficult. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Moving on to item number 9, Director of Engineers report, Charles.
So the first item is just an update for Water Plant 1, just giving you the status. DN tanks did go in there and rehab the clear well. We got the new coating on there, replaced the hatch, got a new vent that can handle the overflow. And as far as the electrical, we had to disconnect, pull out the electrical to go in there and recoat the entire top of the clear well. And so we ordered some parts, and we'll probably have the clear well pumps reconnected next week, and then basically get that back in service. So that's basically where we're at with the clear well rehab. And so basically, the other part of what's going on at Water Plant 1, I don't know if you saw in the memo, there's some photos of both the interior and exterior, what it's looking like. So, seems like a pretty good job. Restored the concrete, got it good to go for the next 50 years or so. And And so basically, the other part is the Freestone Nichols. They're on schedule with working on their water plant number 1 assessment. They're working on putting their memo in-house. Their schedules to be done by the end of July, where they doing their internal quality control review through August. So we should be seeing, their memo for comments. So that's the schedule there. I mean, one of the things we're pointing out or trying to address early, being that we're going to be looking at a major rehab at Water Plant 1, is address the raw water reservoir being adjacent to the wastewater plant. And so kind of our approach to get an exception request for that distance is we're looking at doing a sampling plan in the reservoir just to make sure there's no influence from the airborne or any kind of close proximity of the sewer plant that could be causing any difficulties in the water treatment plant process. So we're going to go ahead and do some grab samples and then have that data in our pocket to basically move forward with that approach. Just to ensure that we're in good shape there. But that's basically another thing we're looking at. We have that manual generator at Water Plant 2 for chlorine dioxide, and at the same time as we approach TCQ for that exception request for the reservoir being where it's at, we're going to probably kick off already moving our manual generator for chlorine dioxide from Water Plant 2 to Water Plant 1, so we can be using that improved, stronger disinfectant at both sites, which we added to control THMs there at Water Plant 2. So we'd be doing that over at Water Plant 1 as well. So that's basically where we're at with Water Plant 1. I don't know, any questions or? All right. So the next one's just our schedule with the loan for lift station rehab. Of course, we closed on June 26th, and then we did they released the money in milestones. So the first release was for planning, which was that current release, $444,000. It got deposited into our account yesterday, and so we're on track with getting to the 30% design, doing all of our force main testing in that planning phase, and then our next release is going to be design phase around October, November, and then looking at construction in July next year. So that's basically our schedule for lift stations. And as far as right now in-house, we're getting those force mains prepped for that ACE pipe cleaning to come down and run the pick through the lines. And so that's where we're at, kind of working hand in hand. That's probably delayed the schedule a couple of weeks, just, trying to locate our force mains, get our gate valves installed, because we have to isolate where these force mains tie to each other to be able to run the pig and get them cleaned. But that's basically the update on the schedule. Unless there's any more detailed questions, it concludes the report.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 10, Director of Finance report, Eddie.
So I just wanted to give you an update on the budget process. The budget committee met on July 15th. We went over a list of major purchases that were being requested, and we came up with a preliminary list of approved projects. You'll see that in the budget workshop, that list. But all those items are subject to approval and discussion at the workshop. So I'm requesting a budget workshop on August 14th. That's before the next meeting, the first meeting of August, at 3:30 in the afternoon. As I'd like to have that workshop about 2 hours before the meeting here. Does that work for all of you?
Yes.
2 hours before?
Yes. So
We need you here at 3.
At 3:30 before the 5:30 meeting.
The next one? When are we gonna do
Yes,
this?
that's at the next meeting. So the next.
What day is that?
Next
Wednesday.
regular-
It's our next
August
regular
14th.
scheduled deal.
Yeah, I can do
Our next regularly scheduled meeting is August 14th, so just requesting at 3:30, a couple of hours before that meeting.
Somebody bringing tacos?
For the workshop.
it. Yeah, for reals, better be some fajita tacos here.
Just kidding.
We can manage that.
Doesn't matter.
I think we can manage that.
I'm just kidding.
But I'm not.
Yes, I understand. If you guys have to skip lunch or whatever to be here.
Adam
we
eats
can-
4 times a day.
Like a mouse. Couple nibbles.
All right, good.
Okay. That's all I have, right?
Okay.
Budget
Thank you.
workshop.
Thank you very much. Item 11, we don't have all the information, so if we could just
Okay.
move that along. Moving along to item number 12, consider and discuss for possible approval of the financial reports for May 2019. So everyone had a chance to
Mhm.
review them, look at them, want to accept them.
Motion to accept.
Motion to accept made by Mr. Starkey,
Second.
seconded by Dr. Lalonde. All acknowledged. They have. None opposed. Thank you. Moving on to 13, consider and discuss for possible approval of the purchase of a chemical mixer for water plant number 2.
The current situation on the rapid mixing basin, it's we only have one mixer working. The second one, it's down. We don't have any backup. So I have the request to advertise and get quotes to purchase one mixer and extra electric motor. And staff, we are recommending going with W WaterTech for the purchase of these 2 items.
It's a big difference in price on those two.
Yeah. W WaterTech is a distributor here for South Texas for this type of equipment. So that's the reason of
That's a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Better than the other second bidder.
Motion to approve.
Motion for approval made by Mr. Starkey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Houston. Are all those in favor?
Aye.
They are.
Thank
Any
you.
opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a question. Mr.
Yes.
Gomez, the pump that you had the issue with on the island that wasn't working,
Yes, sir.
why wasn't it working? Does it
I-
need to be
I spoke
repaired,
to-
replaced, or what?
Well, they just replaced the impellers on that recently, but what happened inside where the impeller's at, it has some shims, and those shims locked up because they folded, for some reason they folded, but he manufactured some there at the mechanic shop today and put them back in there and tested out. It's working now.
It worked?
Yes, sir.
It seems like it, was that one of the things to get another one of? I can't remember.
Was that one of the items that was
Right.
requested?
No.
No, sir. It was not.
Not getting a second water pump?
We're
Well-
wanting to look into it and recommend that we get another one to board.
Didn't we buy a vac truck? Yeah, what,
Yes.
when did we get that?
Yeah, we got that. Can't, we didn't 3 months.
Can't use
That's
a
what I
vac
thought.
truck
So
for
you can't use
water.
that
Can't use the vac truck for.
That's
Oh,
still where.
you can to a certain extent, but then you have to unload it. You gotta, 1,000 gallons is,
It's a
smaller than
6-inch
that.
line. It would
But you
fill
can
up real
use it
fast.
at
Does
times.
it that fast?
There's times that we do use it for that purpose,
Smaller jobs.
smaller.
That was a big one,
A
huh?
residential
Yeah,
leak or something.
So we may, we'll be looking into getting some quotes for another one. So we'll bring it back to the board.
We discussed that this morning.
So,
Maybe that needs to take the place of something else in the
Perhaps,
budget request.
instead of one of the pickups.
I know, man, I don't know how many pickup trucks you need to drive in a day, but why do you switch at lunch?
Oh, it's Joel's the one that needs the trucks.
All right.
We'll get those.
Moving on to item 14, consider and review expenditures from July 1st through July 15th, 2019. Has everyone had a chance to review them, acknowledge them? Motion made by acknowledgement for Mr. Houston and seconded by Mr. Starkey. All those in favor? They are. None opposed. Motion carries. Item 15, we're missing a board member, and I would like to have all the board members present when we do this item. So I ask that we table this item until the next meeting with the full board, hopefully.
Move to table.
Motion to table executive session permitted by Opens Meeting Act, VTCA, Government Code Section 551001, that sequence under Section 551071, consultation with attorney under Section 551074, personnel matters, deliberation regarding the evaluation of district employee 2 at general manager. Motion made to table by Mr. Houston and seconded by.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
A second.
Seconded by Mr. Stark. Here, all those in favor?
Aye.
They are. Meeting is adjourned at 7:16 PM.